My name's Adam Jackson. I'm Head of Strategy and Policy at Historic Environment Scotland. And I'm here to just say a few words, very short few words, about the Skills Investment Plan, the SIP. I feel in a way that you've already had some of the context to this, but I'll just say a few words about context before moving on, just to outline sort of the programme and sort of the deadline really on the delivery of the SIP towards the end, and also to put an ask out there for employers particularly, but obviously already contributing through this forum anyway to its development, but to put an ask out there just to feed into it. In terms of context, well, right at the start of today, Robin's already sort of highlighted our place in time, and our place in time has a key priority in and around developing skills and capacity across the historic environment sector. And obviously our place in time is about, well, it's 3.5 years old, but this has been an issue, an area of great interest, not just for the archaeological community, but more broadly across the historic environment sector for quite a long time. There's been a lot of talk, there's been a lot of work on research into skills gaps and the rest of it, but the strategic ways in which to address this have not necessarily been achieved. So our place in time, overarching and setting strategic direction around this, is Strategic Historic Environment Forum, which is chaired by Cabinet Secretary Fiona Hislop, and obviously HES itself is the leading and enabling body for our place in time. And SHEF itself as well has also highlighted and identified that skills is an issue right across the sector that we really have to get in amongst and do something about. So, I mean, SHEF itself commissioned an earlier report in 14-15 into the provision of skills or skills provision in heritage conservation skills, but it's very much at the skills provision end, really. It wasn't necessarily addressing all the stuff we're talking around demand and supply and that side of things. So, really with the arrival of HES, our creation, and our taking forward the leading and enabling role, and the appointment of our Chief Executive, Alex Patterson, who obviously comes from a background from skills and Highland and Island enterprise in terms of the enterprise side of things, we have put impetus into this and set up the Skills and Expertise Working Group, which met for the first time back in November. And it's chaired by Alex Patterson, our CEO, and its membership includes the Scottish Funding Council. I can see a steering group member here in the room today. Skills Development Scotland, Stephen's part of that, as well as Universities Scotland representation, Colleges Scotland's representation, Museums and Galleries Scotland, National Trust for Scotland, Historic Houses Association, and COSLA from the local authorities' perspective. So it's got a good spread. In fact, it's cross-sectoral in terms of its spread. The purpose being that actually to address this issue, we need to work cross-sectorally to reach education side of things, to reach the funding side of things, to, I suppose, give us focus really to tackle the issue of historic environment skills. And the first mission really is to develop a historic environment SIP, a skills investment plan, which is essentially a future skills strategy, both taking into account what are the needs and demands now, but also actually trying to anticipate what will be the future needs and demands for skills within the sector, but also to drive potentially demand in some areas. And I think Colin's been touching on some of this area in terms of traditional skills and craft skills. Actually, there is an opportunity here, actually, I think, to drive skills within there and to increase the numbers in those areas. And I suppose it's a skills strategy, but the important bit will be the action plan around that, and off the action plan will hopefully hang a whole range of other work, including maybe the frameworks and things and so on. So, and it will sit alongside other SIPs that you'll already be aware of and which we have a very close relationship to, creative industries, construction, tourism. And a lot of the work for those SIPs as well obviously feeds also into the development process for the sector skills. So Skills and Expertise Working Group is the steering group effectively. We have commissioned consultants, which are ECOS, who have a lot of experience in this area. For example, around the construction SIP, around creative industry SIP, and a whole host of other activity. It's funded by Skills Development Scotland and ourselves, this piece of work. SDS is lead in commissioning activity, I think for obvious reasons, and Stephen's given quite a lot of background around skills investment planning already to a certain extent. And project management really for the process is also being led by SDS in partnership with ourselves. And the key stages really, we're very much live, it's very much in process, starting really around the desk-based scoping exercise, which includes a sector definition and baseline mapping. Obviously, historic environment sector skills is huge really. Colin's labelled quite a few within his triangle there, but there's the archaeological community and a whole host of other areas. But then there's primary research as well, stakeholder engagement. There's face-to-face interviews with employers and skills providers and with stakeholders, key stakeholders, including the steering group. There's telephone interviews and also an online survey. And actually, at the end of it, really what we want to get to is the production of a draft SIP and associated action plan by the end of April. So it's happening in a tight time frame. But that said, all of these years of discussion and all of this work by many organisations around skills gaps and the rest of it, there's a lot of data already there which feeds into this. So it's entirely achievable, and that's what we're aiming to do. And it'll be published thereafter, after the end of April. Now, there is a link, and it's an employers-focused survey. It'll be very hard to read, probably, because the colour of the link is quite grey. But these slide decks will be circulated. We can circulate the link even separately to those attendees. And you can always contact me if you want to know more directly, adam.jackson@hes.scot. Okay, is that it? Thank you. Thank you.